we're just hearing that South Korean President Moon Jae-in has left the Blue House and is making his way to Panmunjom. Now, from the Blue House, it's expected to take about an hour or so, given traffic conditions, and he will be making his way to Panmunjom, where he will meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un at the military demarcation line. The two leaders are expected to meet at around between 9 and 9:30 a.m. Now, we can see that the police cars are making its way. It's very high security. So what's the significance? We're meeting in Panmunjom, the South Korean side. It's the first time for the summit.
Yeah, this is the first time for this new government, the Seoul Moon Jae-in government. But this is maybe...
Okay,
sure.
Yep. We think that President Moon is going to make a statement before he actually departs for Panmunjom. We'll see if he makes a statement. He's greeting people that have come out to support him and wish them, I guess, a successful inter-Korean talks. It's the first in 11 years. Okay, now he's greeting the Koreans who have come out to see President Lee for Panmunjom. They're waving South Korean flags. A lot of Korean citizens have been concerned about the recent developments as well. Like, we've seen North Korea's behavior in the past, so we don't know what's to come out of it. Like, they can return to provocations, or this could really be the road to peace, as many say. Many say spring is coming on the peninsula. Yeah, we don't think the president is going to give a statement before he leaves. The crowds are cheering President Moon Jae-in. They're wishing him for successful inter-Korean talks. Now, it must be significant for him as well. We've had two conservative governments in the past, and relations with North Korea have deteriorated over the decades, so it must be significant for the leader to have successfully reached this moment. Now, he has got into his car and he is now leaving for Panmunjom. So if we come back to the questions, so what is the significance of this summit being held on South Korean soil?
Defense Minister, he's got 7 representatives of his government to join him on the summit talks with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, who will also be accompanied by his member team, which is 9-member team.
Right, his A team, which also includes his sister. And we're also wondering if how the arrangements would be for the first ladies of both sides, how they will be seated, how they will be dining, how they will be contributing with their soft diplomacy.
Right, we still have not yet heard by either governments that on the arrangements with the first ladies that you've mentioned. We don't know whether they're going to be there today, but it is still an option. They've opened that option for table. So if they choose to have, there it is, South Korean President Moon Jae-in arriving
with the rest of the team, including Foreign Minister Kwang Kyung-ha, who stands out with her gray hair, and of course the Joint Chiefs of Staff members as well. And
I believe he is making his way to the Peace House, where the two leaders will be having a summit today in a couple of minutes' time. And I think that chair and the desk we're seeing on the side of the screen is also where the North Korean leader will be making his signature moment, a big moment for North Korean leader as he makes his way
to sign the logbook. And of course, we will see
the officials that will be sitting at the summit table. Those include Presidential Chief of Staff Im Jong-seok, National Security Advisor Chung Eui-yong, National Intelligence Service Chief Cho Hun, and the Ministers of Unification, National Defense, and Foreign Affairs. Now, also added to the list was Chairman of South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff Chung Kyung-do. So that's total of 7 all in all. Now, the two leaders are expected to meet in about 20 minutes' time. The first historic face-to-face meeting between the two leaders in 11 years will take kickoff at 9:30 a.m. And according to South Korea's Summit Preparatory Committee, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will cross the inter-Korean border on foot. Now, Kim Jong-un is probably on, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is probably also making his way here. We don't know what mode of transport he is using, but we are speculating that he is coming by car, and he is expected to come through the Pyongyang-Kaesong Expressway. Now, it's about 170 kilometers from Pyongyang to Panmunjom, and it's expected to be about a 2-hour and 10-minute ride. Now, what we're seeing on screen is Panmunjom, where the two leaders of the two Koreas will be meeting. Now, it's the first for a North Korean leader to step onto Korean soil, but not the first of the Kim's family, because his sister has already been South Korean side of the border. Now, anticipation must be high there. Within the next 10 minutes or so, they're going to have their first face-to-face encounter. So, how do you think the two leaders would be feeling right now?
Nervous.
Yes.
But of course, they are ready to do that because they haven't gone through all kind of difficult times as a leaders of the countries. But I think if you look at the screen, they are passing from the North Korean side. It's a unification pavilion. But on the other side, on our side, on the compound, the name is very interesting. It's Freedom House, the Peace House, which is quite interesting with the North Korean side, unification pavilion. So I think that this shows that this is one small segment of how we have been different from each other for the last 70 years. They're only talking about the unification, but actually they don't want the unification.
So if we look at the screen now, South Korean President Moon Jae-in is making his way. So we think North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has arrived. He will greet the North Korean leader at the military demarcation line. We can see him walking with his officials. We saw the foreign minister, Kang Kyung-hwa, making their way to the red carpet, where the two leaders will likely meet shortly. Now he's all smiles.
Yes. No, there will be a great deal of smiles.
Yes, of course. Very carefully coordinated facial expressions.
Yeah.
So we're approaching the historic moment. He's making way to the military demarcation line. So like you said, there must be mixed feelings, nervousness, also high anticipation.
You know, because President Moon Jae-in's family, his father was born and lived in Hamgyong-do.
That's right.
So he's originally from North Korea. So this is a very emotional, very kind of mixed feeling for the president himself, because even though he was born in southern part of the peninsula, his family was originally from North Korea. So this meeting, that kind of the people, same people, particularly from North Korea, they are very different from the people in the south. So this is a very mixed feeling, but of course nervous, but I think it's a mixed feeling. And Mr. President Moon Jae-in has been in all kinds of high meetings and serious summit meetings all over the world. So he's really ready to meet his counterpart at this point. Which is really symbolized the dignity and all the prerogatives of the leader of two countries.
So we can see on the screen, he's making his way. Once North Korean leader Kim Jong-un arrives, they will cross the military demarcation line together and between the Military Armistice Commission T2 and T3 buildings. So they will be walking together towards the Peace House, where the summit talks will be taking place. And on their way, they'll receive a guard of honor as part of the welcoming ceremony. So we can see the blue buildings there. So we haven't been able to see North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on the screen yet.
No, we don't see it.
Yes.
We don't see it. Only
So viewers will
Okay,
also
maybe.
be anticipating the face-to-face encounter between the two leaders. We can see press there. Now we're reportedly meeting at 9:30, so we're just about 3 minutes away. So he probably is nearby. We just can't see him on screen yet. See some North Korean officials there. Oh, guards on the North Korean side. So within the next 5 minutes or so, the two leaders will be meeting. We can see the guard of honor waiting. Oh, there he is, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. He is coming out of the building, making his way to the demarcation line where he will meet with South Korean President Moon Jae-in. So he arrives at Panmunjom. He's walking down the stairs. And within the next few minutes, he will be meeting President Moon Jae-in face to face. You can see he's surrounded by his guards. There we see some key officials from the North Korean side. Now, he will be accompanied by Kim Young-chul, who coordinated with the intelligence chiefs of South Korea and the U.S. in the preparatory meetings. You can see him. He's approaching South Korean leader Kim Jong-un, or South Korean President Moon Jae-in, rather. The two Koreas have a historic handshake, and they're exchanging soft talk. We don't know what they're saying exactly, but Kim Jong-un is speaking to Moon Jae-in. They're still holding hands and greeting each other. It's a historic moment for the two Koreas. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has stepped over the military demarcation line. The two leaders have greeted each other and are taking a photograph. Now, it's a very historic moment. It's the first time for a North Korean leader to hold summit talks on the South Korean side of the border. Another handshake there for a photograph. Oh, holding hands as they walk. Another handshake. Oh, they're coming back. So the two leaders will have a welcoming ceremony before they start official talks at 10:30 a.m. So a lot of little conversations there, but of course we don't know what's being mentioned. Flowers for North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Oh, and there's his sister, Kim Yo-jong, who was also in South Korea. Another ceremonial photograph. So it's the moment that the world has been waiting for. The two Koreas meet. Now we will be passing it over to Semin and Daniel at the Torasan checkpoint, who will be giving us a more detailed coverage. Semin and Daniel?
Yes, Minji, we are watching North Korean leader Kim Jong-un as well as South Korean leader Moon Jae-in walking the red carpet with the guard of honor on both of the sides, welcoming the North Korean leader to the south. And now we saw the two leaders holding handshakes, and they even had a photo shot together. So a significant two-shot that we've never seen before.
Right, very envious of the fact that Min Jae got to be the one to break the historic moment to the rest of the world. But we appreciate it. Must have been under pressure. Kept on edges probably with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un not showing any signs of being there. Made a little surprise, dramatic entrance there with his entourage.
And the two leaders are now going to walk through the Guard of Honor, as we are seeing. This is something that we've seen before when we had U.S. President Donald Trump visit South Korea on a state visit that time. But this time, because this event, this welcoming event is taking place at Panmunjom, a sizable, it's not sizable enough to be holding an official and the original size of the Guard of Honor. So at this time, they're going to downscale this welcoming ceremony instead. About some 100 people included in this ceremony today, and they are walking to the Peace House.
Right, in the traditional wardrobes to reflect perhaps a simpler time when the two Koreas were not that much different. That to remind North Korea that this is how it should have been, this is how it could be in the future, and we both have so much more to gain by going together, which is of course a very commonly repeated military slogan with the South Korea U.S. forces as well. The honor guards here are not the militaristic boys in green that we expected, but rather in the traditional Korean wardrobes. And yeah, they seem to be having a very nerve-wracking time at the same time, probably going through their heads what they should cover next, how they should approach the next subject, what kind of small talk they should make. And they have so much planned up for the rest of the day. It's definitely a very stressful and pressure cooker moment for them. The weight of the world is on both these leaders' shoulders, and the eye of the world is squarely targeted at them, watching their every move. I understand there were initial reports of possibly having cameras installed on the walls of the demarcation line, but perhaps that was not carried out as planned.
But Daniel, this is a moment, this, as you said, may be a pressure cooking moment for both leaders and the watchers around the world, but this is a moment that the world was waiting. They were counting off days, waiting for today's summit to take place ever since the two leaders have agreed to hold talks the first time in 11 years. And we are seeing the North Korean leader in his Mao-collared outfit, something very traditional in North Korea, but we've seen the North Korean leader in a more casual suit in the recent months and weeks. So
and of course, the symbolic gesture he made during the New Year's address. And of course, North Korea is a communist state.
Right.
And of course, this is the remnants and sort of kudos to the country that has been providing them a lot of support over the years. Their big brother country, China.
And with that outfit, we can assume that he wanted to express and show more about his regime, even though he is meeting with the South Korean leader, Moon Jae-in. He wanted to, you know, be the presence of the regime himself as he walked through that demarcation line with his own left foot, was it? I missed it, but...
This is definitely a big coming out party for the North Korean leader. All eyes will be on him. And it is a rare instance because whenever we hear about instances where Kim Jong-un is going to be in the public spotlight, it's carefully filtered and orchestrated to make sure the best side of him is shown. Nothing less than perfect can be allowed for the rest of the world to watch. But now, here he is. Out in the open. Exactly
right. That is why today and this moment is very crucial. We don't see him live that often on TV. This is live broadcast being beamed around the world. And as you said, North Korea do have their state-owned television that broadcast also on the every move of the leader Kim Jong-un. But they are pre-taped, so they edit stuff out. They coordinate stuff before they air the taped version of their leader being showed to the people. But today we are seeing live, unfiltered version of the North Korean leader side by side with South Korean Moon Jae-in walking through and now receiving the honor of guards.
A grand gesture of welcome that's reserved for the highest of dignitaries. This is something that we have not seen in Panmunjom in the past. Certainly not in this design, not in this scale.
Not this
Completely
setting at all.
covered with red carpet all over the place. It's really quite exhilarating, and we are going to be at a loss for words, groping for words to describe this emotion that we're feeling as Koreans. It is a little different to the rest of the world who have been watching and asking us, which side are you from, north or south, whenever we meet foreigners outside of our nation. And it was, at the same time, a little bit baffling, but a little sad at the same time. That was the reality of our country.
And as you said, because the North Korean leader, it is his first time that South Korea is greeting the North Korean leader to South Korean soil. It's the first time that we're having North Korean leader receiving the guard of South Korean military. So that's also significant in its own way.
Right, and it's also very important to note that we're not imposing any distinctly South Korean color.
That have been discussed during the morning sessions before they meet again for afternoon session. But in the evening, they do dine together.
Right,
so
as we mentioned, they're doing multiple tasks together, making their presence be felt and posing for the cameras for the rest of the world, exchanging pleasantries, and also planning what kind of strategic dialogue they should have in this very brisk summit. Previous summits have been 2 days. This one is just a single day.
Exactly, and they are walking together side by side, representing the two Koreas. And they are entering the building of the Peace House where the two leaders will be holding their summit. And that building, as you've mentioned before, has been renovated for today's summit.
Right,
They
to make sure they walk in together through one gate.
Exactly, and they've built and if they've changed the furniture inside the building. They've
I believe
reorganized
everything,
the entire
maybe even the
design.
kitchen sink, have
Perhaps.
been turned
I'm not
inside
so
out
sure
and
about
upside
that.
down
But
to
the
make
two
sure
leaders
things are
entering
changed.
beforehand that we were told by the presidential office of Cheongwade that the two leaders will be having their lunch separately.
Separately, which is
in
intriguing.
different buildings.
Right.
So South Korean President Moon Jae-in will have his his lunchtime rather, with his delegation, while North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will return north of the border just by crossing the
Right.
demarcation line, like he did about an hour ago.
We're
and
seeing the interior of the scenery, what it would have been like.
There we go. We're seeing Chairman Kim Jong-un being escorted by South Korea's Unification Minister Cho Myung-gyun, and now shaking hands once again with South Korean President Moon Jae-in. President Moon giving a nice little pat on the back to Chairman Kim and introducing the pine tree. What is the significance there? What does that imply? Why are they planting a tree together?
Me, I don't know. In fact, when I heard yesterday they're planting a tree that dated back to 1953, I'm like, well, isn't the tree already planted?
It seems like it.
I got very confused. In fact, I just kind of wrote it in my story, and my editor started questioning me about it, and I had to say, I don't know. I can't explain it either. So they must be transferring the tree from another location to this particular location. It's a very symbolic act, I guess, but it's lost on me.
Well, so the fact that I read it there that they will be adding soil from the Baekdusan mountain, so in North Korea, Halasan mountain, southern tip of South Korea, and they'll be merging the soil together onto the tree so that the tree will grow from the soil from the two mountains. Harmony of the two Koreas to symbolize peace and prosperity of the two Koreas. That's wonderful, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a classic trope of Korean unification, or the aspiration for unification in the face of division, and those mountains are, you know, the closest thing to almost sacred mountains, among others, for the Korean people historically and culturally. So, you know, I think this is the part of the day where the reunification aspiration, the symbolism of that, is coming across the strongest.
Sure.
You know, but it's interesting. I mean, we can kind of go as far with this poetically as we want. A tree is an interesting symbol in that it grows slowly. And, you know, the big question about reunification is is pacing. You know, I mean, that's
Right.
one of the questions. And so there may be some, you know, some symbolic significance to reunification can come like a tree. This is not something you can do overnight. This is not something that probably either Korea is ready to do quickly. It's something that needs to happen organically and sort of unfold like the growth of a tree that's been
But-
transplanted, Brian, from its
Yeah.
life pre-1953
Well-
and
well,
is now
looking
starting
at-
its new history.
Well, looking at the footage, perhaps it wasn't transplanted. Maybe they were adding soil to it. Maybe it was a ceremony involving a tree, and so maybe that was my confusion about the whole process.
But eventually it will happen. But eventually it will grow. A tree will grow. And
If taken care of.
yes, it will be taken care of, I assure you. And there we go, a photo being taken for that. And we're seeing the two leaders of North and South Korea basically adding soil from the Paektusan Mountain from North Korea, and soil from Hallasan Mountain from
잘
South Korea.
지어나가야 된다고 생각합니다.
And if I can't hear him very well, but Chairman Kim saying something along the lines of it needs to be taken good care of.
문재인 대통령께서는 평양 대동강물을 뿌려주시겠습니다.
And the water that they're watering is water from the Taedong River in North Korea and water from the Han River in South Korea. So another very symbolic move there.
Yeah, and again, you know, this is there's something ritual to this, obviously,
Yes.
and Koreans do. Some Koreans keep up ritual. You know, my Korean family does chesa, and so there's a certain. As I watch this, there's an element of kind of ritual enactment, you know, enacting a wish of Korean people to come together in, as you say, peace and prosperity. And it's also about geography, you know, geography is
And
destiny.
right there it says, we plant peace and prosperity, and signed by President of the Republic of Korea, Moon Jae-in, and the chairman of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Kim Jong-un.
I would say this is classic Kim Jong-un. I mean, he looks relaxed and,
Yes,
you know,
yes, and he
engaging and talking to his people and Moon, and is very comfortable, and as does President Moon. So, and that's the point of this, is to break up the intensity of a negotiation.
Right. I think after the morning session, the 100-minute long morning session, they really become more relaxed with one another. I think Chairman Kim seemed a bit uptight at the very beginning, but seems more relaxed.
I mean, it's interesting to see how they're trying to use this space. It's such a, you know, I've been in that space, we all have. I've been from the north as well once. It's such a tense place, you know, and both sides actually try and make it tense, you know, and project that tenseness to the other. So it's remarkable to watch them occupying the DMZ and making it a place of dialogue, of symbolic reconciliation. You know, they are really in the heart of the conflict and the hostility, and so they're trying to transform it, to use symbolism to transform it.
Sure. I mean, Brian, I'm sure you've been there a couple times for coverage, but as I have, and you know, every time I go there for coverages, it's always been remarkable how the atmosphere there is so tense, at the same time so peaceful. You know, serene, away from the city, and there's an air of peace. And like John said, you know, the two sides make it appear and seem so tense, but there's still that peacefulness there.
It's a rare place.
Yes.
When you go up there, and to realize that you can go up to here but no further, that you can look across the border but you cannot cross the border and to understand that it's a very heavily fortified area. It does give you pause when you're up there. It does make you think about, you know, the historical ramifications of the last 60 years.
Right. So for those of you just joining us, you're watching Arirang's live coverage of the 2018 Inter-Korean Summit, the afternoon session of the South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's summit session. And they've just kicked off the afternoon session by planting a pine tree together on the southern side of the border truce village of Panmunjom. They're now taking a group photo together, and it's a historic moment. And as North Korea's Chairman Kim wrote in the guest book, a new history begins now, the age of peace at the starting point of history. And I think both Chairman Kim and President Moon share that feeling and share that belief that this is a starting point of a new history. And that is a live feed of pictures coming in from Panmunjom, the border truce village, where two leaders are holding the first Inter-Korean Summit in more than a decade, and the first time for these two leaders to meet ever. And the two leaders walking away. Now, they will be taking a nice stroll.
The proverbial walk in the woods where they carve out a kind of private space. When you walk with someone, you can have silence for a little while and then you can restart the conversation. It's a different, I think a lot of the staging is trying to give them different settings in which they can talk, you know, because you talk in a different way when you're sitting across a conference table and your teams are there than when you're alone. You talk differently when you take a walk in the woods, you know, so I think this is putting them in different kind of perspectives. Obviously the camera's still on them, so this is a false privacy, and yet we are still at a remove, and they create that kind of veil where they're able to talk. Yeah, I didn't notice the foreign ministers at the last picture. I don't know if that was planned, if they're having a tete-a-tete, or if I just missed it. But in that group photo,
Foreign Minister.
I didn't see Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho or Foreign Minister Kang, so I don't know if they're if that was scheduled or if they're having a sideline bilateral, or if I just missed it.
I didn't see them either. We'll have to double check on that.
This, I guess, is the bridge that was expanded,
yes.
Is that right?
Yes, it's called the footbridge. Now, isn't that a rare sight? The leaders of the two Koreas crossing the footbridge at the JSA in the DMZ.
Yeah, and to watch it live, and obviously this was all pre-approved, and so again we're seeing different. We need to keep adjusting our understanding, our expectations, in particularly of Kim Jong-un, because you know he's, as you see, he's a young leader, one of the youngest in the world, but he's had 6 years. You can't call him young and inexperienced anymore. He is still young, but he's not inexperienced. But he's new to diplomacy, to this kind of high-level diplomacy, and you can see his comfort zone. You know, this is not a typical North Korean comfort zone. Let me tell you, he is way outside of the North Korean box right now, and he's fine with it, and they're covering it. And whenever, if it's tomorrow or the next day, this is going to be. You know, these images are going to be on the front pages of Norong Shimun, you know, and North Korean coverage, and so that does force us to reassess who we're dealing with, you know, and the kind of possibilities that exist with him.
We've definitely seen a different side to him in the last few months. Very outgoing, meeting with the South Korean envoy, meeting with President Xi Jinping, seeming much more comfortable being outside of his inner circle and outside of staged events in North Korea. Definitely gives off an appearance of being much more in control and and comfortable in his own skin. So we don't hear in the media, and we don't hear from analysts much more as we had in the past. You know, that this is very much chaos and on the brink of collapse government inside Pyongyang. There seems to be more of a general sense that Kim is very much in control of what's happening now.
I think that a reflection of confidence. All of this is a reflection of Kim Jong-un's confidence in himself, I think.
Because one of my questions has always been why now? Why the pivot now? Particularly if he's looking for a deal, a nuclear deal with the U.S., he's not likely to get a deal with President Trump that he could not have gotten with President Obama 2 or 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. But perhaps he and his power base within Pyongyang was not ready yet at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote something for the Washington Post recently, just last week, you know, kind of exploring that theme, Brian, and about why is this happening now, arguing that it's a combination of Kim's domestic confidence that he's consolidated power. Because we know by North Korea's own admission that there was serious factional struggle. You know, the arrest of his uncle Jang Song-taek, again, by North Korea's own, the extensive, detailed reports they put out, that there was a very intense power struggle, and that's what led to the uncle's arrest and execution. And so
We're going to cut short from the interview for a second. Now, the two Koreas are set to announce a joint statement shortly. Excellent. Now, on the screen, we can see North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in. They will be signing the joint statement.
I can't read it, though.
Okay, we can also see his sister Kim Yo-jong by his side. She's helping him out. So they have joined the joint statement at the Peace House. That's where they took a photograph together this morning. So it's been a long day for the leaders. The two had their first encounter at 9:30 a.m. this morning, and now it's 6 p.m. They are they are having a handshake. So the joint statement has been signed by the leaders of the two Koreas. So the details of the agreement or the joint statement has yet to be unveiled. Okay, there is a big hug between the two leaders. So a lot of press waiting for her. Okay, she has stepped out of the car, and she is being greeted by South Korea's First Lady Kim Jong-suk. And the two are seen to exchange some words. Now we can see the leaders of the two Koreas also coming out. So another meet and greet between the First Ladies. So North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's wife, Lee Sol-ju, has been seen a lot has been receiving global coverage. She's been accompanying Kim Jong-un on his summit trips. as well when South Korean delegation visited Pyongyang. She was also there. Likely they're going to take a group photograph. Okay, so there you have it. The first couples of the two Koreas take a photo together.
Sort of like a family.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un delivered a rather direct speech that emphasized on key points that he wanted to deliver. Some of the words that stand out are nightmares, that he would like to keep the nightmare that we have experienced and we are experiencing behind. To frame it at that, with that word is quite significant. But it seems like they're getting along nicely, and considering that this is the first time they're making contact, it feels like they've known each other for quite a long time.
And that is the live footage that we've been all waiting for the past couple moments. That is the farewell ceremony of the two Koreas, the leaders of the two Koreas, and actually a farewell ceremony for the leader Kim Jong-un, who will be heading back to North Korea in a short while. We are seeing two first couples walking down the red carpet set up at the Panmunjom, located on the border village of the Panmunjom, which is a rare occasion.
Walking out
for
on the
summit.
southern side of Panmunjom, the Peace House, and the red carpet, very vivid and visible. I wonder how it would be reused later on, possibly auctioned off or kept in a museum. Speaking of red velvet, isn't that one of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's favorite K-pop groups?
That was one of the K-pop groups.
Perhaps that is one subliminal message or welcoming message South Korea is trying to roll out for the important visitor.
And all the people surrounding the first two couples are clapping for joy with smiles on their faces, something that reflects today's summit and how it all went, with the Panmunjom Declaration being rolled out, and we are seeing the entire delegations from both Koreas and seated.
Right, for a special farewell. So this may be in some way a tribute to the late North Korean leader as well.
And also part of today's farewell ceremony will be a small orchestra playing with South Korean or the Korean traditional percussion quartet, Samulnori, also known as Samulnori in Korean. So they will be going through this video clip and we'll listen to some of the musical performances. And then once that all wraps up, the first couple of South Korea will walk the North Korean leaders.
Let's listen to the performance right now. Yeah, this is playing Arirang.
Quite a scenic view. We don't see those performances on the border village of Panmunjom. It's highly guarded by both militaries of the two Koreas.
But a majestic display of sight and sound performance to delight the senses. A 4D experience, if you might add.
Something that the two Korean officials had been preparing in the weeks and the days time leading up to today's summit, holding dress rehearsals a couple days ago, and this might have been one of their agendas that they wanted to straighten out.
It's interesting to note that the rather aging, rather senior officials were busy with this very upbeat, cultural, hip performance for the two leaders.
It's like a cherry on top. It's like the final performance that comes together, that wraps things up for the two Korean leaders' summit today.
Man, this is beautiful. It looks like, it feels like an extension from the inspirational and very moving performance we've had in terms of using digital technology during the ceremonies of Pyeongchang Winter Olympics.
that was the Korean traditional percussion quartet of Samulnori that I was just talking about. Also in tune, playing in tune with
to Korea is to have no barriers, to be able to move inside and outside and back and forth as North Korean leader Kim Jong-un proposed during his toast.
just in tune with the Panmunjom Declaration that they have announced a couple hours ago. And once this performance by South Korean officials, once this farewell ceremony comes to an end, the first couple of South Korea will be walking the first couple of North Korea to the vehicle that they came in, which is near the borderline of the demarcation line. And then we will see goodbyes from the both leaders.
More like till we meet again, hopefully, instead of goodbye. They did mention how they would love to continue to call each other anytime, anywhere, and stay in touch. It was good to see both sides lifting each other up higher and giving a lot of praise to each other, not just to their respective counterparts, but to the staff and the people involved and those who are attending that event itself, and also people like you and I, the journalists and reporters and the media who have been hotly anticipating and covering this monumental event.
And from today on, it looks like that area of the performance where the performance is being held, the joint security area, also the border village of Panmunjom, will likely have a different symbol to both Koreas. That's the place where we used to see a lot of highly guarded military personnel, but now a symbol of peace, bringing the two Koreas together.
It looks like it's finally, for this long day that felt also like a split second if you look back. So much significance, a possible strong turning point for Korea. I won't say to Korea's, but for Korea itself. And we are watching them walk away from the red carpet as we bid them farewell till we meet again.
Till we meet again, that is. And even when they separate tonight, the leaders have promised that they would continuously hold talks on various levels, so they would continue this momentum of warmed relations between the two sides.
Right, it seems like it takes a lot more work to thaw the relations between two sides that are so closely linked and so much similarity, basically the same root. It's just so hard to work things back to how things used to be after a falling out. We should be firmly reminded that this very dynamic moment, this very spontaneous build-up to talks, thawing of relations and opening up, giving each other a second chance. This is something we should constantly remind ourselves, especially after watching that very breathtaking performance reminding us that we are one.
And all of the faces that we see on screen they've got their smiles on their faces, even though it was a long and hectic and busy day for all of them, I bet. They seem to be satisfied with the outcome the Inter-Korean Summit had brought throughout the entire day, including the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, which something that we don't see often on his face.
Right, it's a rare sight indeed, and hopefully a familiar sight that we will see constantly that will sort of match faces when it comes to thinking about the North Korean leader. All smiles, eager, open up, and very brisk and precise to the point in terms of delivering messages of peace and reconciliation.
And the first couple seem to be delivering their farewell for the night.
We're not receiving any confirmation of gift exchanges. I guess that might have been a little bit tedious considering the sanctions that's still keeping North Korea in check and under pressure. I can't lie that I was feeling a little bit stressed out and tired as we had to be here all day, all night, but watching this moment, being a part of history in the making, and helping our viewers make sense of it and understand the gravity, the importance and significance of this moment, reminding them of how important a turning point this is for Korea and the world, it makes the effort all the worthwhile.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and First Lady Lee Sol-ju a little hours ago. And now we are seeing President Moon Jae-in saying his goodbye to his top officials.
It's time for the two leaders to go separate ways and let it all soak in. I mean, even for them, this might feel like a dream.
And what a successful day it has been for the South Korea, for both Koreas, and who had been...
Many skeptics felt that, will he even show up? Will this even happen? Or will the talks actually be held properly? Could there be a falling out? Could it actually work against building a more positive relationship for the two Koreas? But we proved them wrong, and I look forward to